Cyrus Malone was 40 years old the Thursday afternoon. His phone lit up with a business expense notification for a catering deposit he had never authorized, charged to his company card. Scheduled to be delivered to his own home address on a Saturday, he was supposed to be in Savannah. He read the notification twice. He set the phone face down on the counter. He picked it back up. To Vanessa's family, Cyrus Malone was the man who managed a restaurant. A decent enough career, they allowed, though never quite what they had imagined for her. Her mother, Gloria, called him the help behind his back and smiled warmly to his face. And Vanessa had laughed at the joke at a family dinner he was not supposed to hear. He drove a modest car. He worked long hours. He smelled like kitchen grease on weekends. Gloria had been planning Vanessa's exit from the marriage for longer than Vanessa had been planning it herself. What neither of them had ever thought to ask, not once in 6 years, not when Gloria selected the venue, not when Vanessa approved the guest list, not when someone charged a $1.400 catering deposit to a card linked to Cyrus Malone's restaurant group, was whose name was on the deed to the house where the party was going to be held. The house was his. The card was his. The restaurant group was his. All 4 locations of it. The caterer's question, when it came, was perfectly innocent. The woman simply approached the man she recognized as the property owner and asked who would be settling the remaining balance. It was the most expensive question Gloria Tate had ever been in the room for. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The Thursday had begun the way most of his Thursdays did, with the 6 o'clock quiet of a kitchen that only he used well. Cyrus stood at the range with both hands wrapped around a mug and listened to the city start up outside the windows. He had bought this house because of this kitchen, the ceiling height, the original tile, the east-facing window that caught the morning light like it had been positioned for nothing else. He had renovated it over 2 years, a custom range hood, plaster walls, shelving he designed and had fabricated by a carpenter in Decatur. It was the best room he had ever stood in, and he had stood in a great many professionally. His grandmother, Loretta May, had run a supper club out of her house in Macon for 22 years, and she had told him early, "Cyrus, anybody can feed people. What takes skill is making them feel like somebody thought about them before they walked in the door." He had built 4 restaurants on that one sentence. He had tried to build a marriage on it, too. He had met Vanessa at a culinary event in Midtown, a tasting he'd been invited to as a vendor, and she had attended as a guest of one of the organizers. She was composed and direct, and she had opinions about food that were actually her own, rather than borrowed from whoever she was trying to impress, and that had been the thing that distinguished her, in that first conversation, from nearly everyone else in the room. He had pursued her carefully, and she had let herself be found, and the first 2 years had been genuinely good, warm and social and easy in the way beginnings are easy before you understand their cost. The problems came gradually, and from a specific direction. Gloria, Vanessa's mother, had decided, within the first month of meeting Cyrus, that her daughter had settled. She said it indirectly, creatively, persistently, through comments about his hours, questions about his trajectory, the particular way she looked at his modest car parked beside the house every Sunday when she came for dinner. Vanessa had not defended him loudly enough or often enough, and over time the silence had grown into something structural, the way rot grows inside a wall you haven't opened. His other phone, the one tied to his restaurant group operations, the one Vanessa knew existed and understood to be for work and never questioned beyond that, lived in his chest pocket from 6 in the morning until he came home. It handled vendor orders, staff schedules, and the automated expense notifications he'd set up because he believed in knowing exactly where his money moved at all times. Vanessa knew he was particular about his finances. She had never asked why. She came downstairs at 7:30, already put together, already on her phone. She kissed his cheek and said Gloria was coming by Saturday while he was in Savannah, and that they might have a few friends over. She said it the way you say something you have been practicing, smoothly, without the breath of real casualness. He asked which friends. She said just people from her circle, nothing formal. Her phone buzzed and she glanced at it and turned it face down on the counter. He noted all of it. He poured her a cup of coffee. He asked about her week. The notification came at 11:43 that morning, while he was at the Buckhead location reviewing the weekend prep schedule. His business expense alert: deposit charged, $1,400, Prestige Catering Co., event location, home address, event date, Saturday, 7 p.m., 30 guests. He stood in the middle of his own dining room and read it 3 times. He was not going to Savannah. He did not react, not visibly. He finished the conversation with his sous chef about the weekend fish order, shook the man's hand, and walked to his office in the back of the restaurant. His hands didn't shake. He sat at his desk and opened his laptop and pulled up the business account portal. The charge was there, $4,100 to Prestige Catering, processed at 9:48 that morning from a card ending in 7714. He cross-referenced the card. It was a supplemental card on his restaurant group account, one he had issued 2 years ago for household expenses, kept in the second drawer of the entryway table for grocery deliveries and utility deposits. Vanessa knew it was there. She had used it before for legitimate household charges. She had used it this morning to deposit a catering order for a party she had described to him as people from her circle, nothing formal. He picked up his personal phone and called Prestige Catering directly. The coordinator who answered was a woman named Deborah, professional and helpful, and she had no idea, not a single idea, what she was confirming. "Yes, we have an event this Saturday at that address," she said. 30 guests, cocktail hour from 7 to 8, seated dinner from 8 to 10, full service. It was booked under a Mrs. Vanessa Malone. "Is there something you needed to adjust?" "The theme," he said evenly. "Can you remind me what was requested for the styling?" A pause, the sound of a keyboard. "Let me see, yes, it's noted here as a celebration dinner." The client requested gold and white, champagne centerpieces, and a custom cake with the text. Another pause. New chapter, new life. He let that sit for a moment. "Thank you," he said. "I'll be in touch about the balance." He ended the call. He sat in the quiet of his own office. His face remained perfectly calm. He opened a tab and pulled up the Fulton County Property Records portal. His name appeared immediately. The house purchased in 2019, cash transaction, sole ownership. His name only. Vanessa had moved in 14 months after he bought it. She had never been on the deed. She had never asked. He had never thought it required discussion. He called his attorney, Felicia Drummond, and asked her to run a quiet search on any divorce consultations or filings associated with Vanessa in the past 6 months. Felicia called back in 40 minutes. There had been a consultation with a family law attorney in February, 5 months ago. Preliminary paperwork had been drawn up. No filing had yet been made. He built the timeline. The consultation in February. A second meeting in April. A third in June, the month Vanessa had begun asking quiet questions about which furniture had been purchased before the marriage. The card charge this morning, the party Saturday, the Savannah trip she had encouraged, which he now understood had been designed to empty the building. She had been managing this for 5 months. From inside his house, using his card. $1,400 was the deposit. Felicia confirmed the full event invoice from Prestige came to $6,800. He opened a folder on his desktop. He named it simply Saturday. Then he made 2 calls. The first was to Felicia. The second was to a man named Harold Cruz, his original business partner, the person who had co-signed his first restaurant lease 17 years ago when Cyrus was 23, and Harold was the only person in Atlanta who believed in him, without reservation. "Harold," he said, "I need you Saturday evening. Bring your good jacket." Felicia Drummond's office was on Peachtree Street, 14th floor, with a view of Midtown she never seemed to look at, because there was always something more interesting on her desk. She was 55, practiced family and business law, and had handled 3 of Cyrus's business transactions over the years, with a precision he expected from people he paid well. She did not flinch at anything he placed in front of her. She reviewed the card charge, the catering invoice, the property records, and the divorce consultation timeline in sequence, and when she finished, she took off her reading glasses and looked at him steadily. "The card misuse alone gives us something. Using a business account card for a personal event of this nature, particularly one demonstrably organized around the dissolution of the marriage, is actionable as misappropriation of business funds. That's secondary. I know. The primary issue is the house." She set the property record on top of the stack. She is throwing a party in a property she has no legal interest in, using funds from a business she has no legal relationship to celebrate a divorce she has not yet filed. She paused. "Does she know you own the restaurant group?" Cyrus was quiet. "She knows I own the Buckhead location. I don't believe she has ever asked about the others." Felicia looked at him the way someone looks at a hand of cards they hadn't expected to be holding. "All 4 locations?" "All 4. She nodded slowly. "Then, Saturday is going to be an education for several people. Preparation was the work. The work itself was always quiet." He drove to Decatur on Friday morning to sit with Harold at the same diner table where they had planned every major move of the past 17 years, where Harold had drawn the original floor plan of the Buckhead location on the back of a paper placemat, and told Cyrus it was going to work when no one else believed it would. Harold was 64 now, retired from active operations, but still sharp in the way of someone who had never stopped paying attention. He listened without shifting in his chair. When Cyrus finished, Harold looked up. "Gloria planned this." "Yes, I've met that woman 4 times, and every time she looked at you like you were a bill that needed settling." He shook his head slowly. "She never once asked what you actually did. She asked Vanessa once. Vanessa told her I managed a restaurant. I didn't correct it." Harold was quiet for a moment. "Then, you know what your grandmother would have said about that. She'd say the ones who don't ask aren't curious. They're just assuming." Harold nodded. He would wear his good jacket, he said, because some rooms required it. Back in his office, his business manager Charisse spent an afternoon pulling the full account history together. What she found was thorough and damning. Over the past 5 months, 7 additional charges had been made on the supplemental household card that crossed clearly into personal legal expenses. 2 payments to what appeared to be the family law firm. 1 charge to a moving and storage company for a consultation deposit. And 4 smaller charges to vendors whose invoices, when Charisse requested copies through Cyrus's right as the primary account holder, showed itemized services for a residential relocation that had never been disclosed to him. She had been billing her exit strategy to his business account for 5 months. The moving company had a quote on file. Full-service move from his address. Scheduled for 3 weeks from Saturday. Felicia prepared 3 documents. The formal notice regarding unauthorized business account use, the property ownership summary, and a comprehensive accounting of the charges requiring restitution. She also called Prestige Catering and arranged for the full remaining balance of $5,400 to stay outstanding until Saturday evening, payable on site. That Friday night, Cyrus came home and cooked a proper dinner. Roasted chicken with herbs from the kitchen windowsill garden he maintained himself, the kind of meal he rarely made on weeknights. Vanessa came downstairs and found the table set and the candles lit and seemed, for a moment, uncertain which version of the evening she had walked into. She ate well. She answered questions about her week. She told him the drive to Savannah was only 3.5 hours, and he shouldn't leave too early because the traffic on I-16 was brutal before 9. He said he appreciated the advice. He poured her a glass of wine. He watched her the way he watched a service going wrong, already knowing the check, already knowing the table, already knowing exactly when to step in. He drove south at 8 the next morning, bag in the trunk. He went 40 minutes down I-75, pulled off at a rest stop, called Harold, called Felicia, and turned around. He was back in the neighborhood by 2 in the afternoon. He parked 2 streets over, walked through the rear easement he knew by heart from a fence installation 3 years ago, and entered his house through the back gate he had built and keyed himself. The Prestige crew arrived at 4 to begin setup. 6 of them. Professional and efficient. The lead coordinator was a woman named Yvonne, who had worked events across Atlanta for 20 years, and who recognized Cyrus the moment he stepped into his own kitchen, not because they were friends, but because she had catered 2 events at his Buckhead location, and she knew an owner's face. "Mr. Malone," she said, stopping with a tray in both hands. "I didn't realize." "It's all right, Yvonne," he said quietly. "Continue your setup. I just need to know when the balance comes due. End of the event. 9:30. I'll be here." He went upstairs. He showered. He dressed in a dark suit and a white shirt, no tie, the way he dressed for the opening nights of his restaurants. Clean, deliberate, unhurried. He came downstairs at 6:15, while guests were just beginning to arrive, and stood in the corner of his own living room with a glass of sparkling water and watched the room fill. Gloria arrived at 6:45, confident and luminous in a gold dress that matched the centerpieces she had presumably approved. She walked in as though she were the host. She directed the catering staff with instructions that Yvonne's team politely declined to follow. She kissed cheeks and accepted compliments on the room. She had not yet seen Cyrus standing near the kitchen doorway. Vanessa arrived at 7, dressed in white, and stopped when she did. The room kept moving around her. She did not. "You're supposed to be in Savannah." "I came back early," he said. "It's my house." Gloria appeared at Vanessa's shoulder, looking from Cyrus to the room with the rapid recalculation of someone reassessing every variable at once. Cyrus, the warmth she always manufactured for him, arriving on schedule. "This is just a small celebration. A family gathering for my wife's divorce," he said pleasantly. "From me. In my house. On my card." He lifted his glass. "I appreciate the gold and white. That was a good call." The room had gone quiet by then. 30 people, candles lit, champagne flutes full, a custom cake on the dining table that read "New Chapter, New Life" in gold script. Felicia and Harold came through the front door at 7:15. Felicia carried a leather portfolio. Harold wore his good jacket. Cyrus set down his glass. Felicia placed the property record on the dining table, beside the cake. "The property at this address," she said clearly, "is sole ownership of Cyrus Allen Malone, purchased in 2019, cash transaction, unencumbered. There is no joint ownership, no tenancy agreement, and no legal basis for this gathering to continue, without the property owner's consent. She placed the business account summary beside it. The deposit and preliminary charges for this event were made on Mr. Malone's business account without authorization. The outstanding balance of $5,400 will be settled by Mr. Malone as the account holder, and a formal restitution demand has been prepared for that amount. She set the third document on the table. This is a comprehensive accounting of charges made to Mr. Malone's business account over the past 5 months in connection with undisclosed legal and relocation planning. The total requiring restitution is $4,200. The room was very still. Vanessa said his name. She said it the way she had said it on their best evenings, with a softness that cost her something, and he recognized it for exactly what it was, and what it was no longer. Gloria stepped forward. "This is not appropriate, Gloria." Harold Cruz spoke from near the door, without raising his voice. "You planned a party in a man's home to celebrate taking something from him. I think appropriate left this room when you ordered the centerpieces." Yvonne appeared at Cyrus's elbow. "Professionally, without ceremony," she said, "Mr. Malone. I just need to know who's settling the balance this evening." Cyrus reached into his jacket and produced his card, the primary business account, his name embossed across the front, and set it on her tray. "I am," he said, "as always." He looked at Vanessa, then at Gloria. His expression was even, complete, and entirely final. "My grandmother built something from nothing," he said, "and she taught me everything she knew about hospitality. The first rule was this: you don't invite yourself into someone else's house and call it yours." He buttoned his jacket. "I hope you enjoyed the food. Prestige does excellent work." He walked to the front door. Harold fell into step beside him. The door closed behind them without force. 9 months later, Cyrus stood in the kitchen of his 5th restaurant, a breakfast and lunch concept in Ponce Highland that he had been designing in his head for 3 years and opened in April, and listened to the sound of a full dining room on a Saturday morning. Every table occupied. The line going to the door. The kind of noise a room makes when it is doing exactly what it was built to do. The house had been renovated over the winter, which was his habit and his rhythm. Find what could be better and make it better, quietly, without announcement. He had taken down the wall between the dining room and the living room to open the space the way he had always wanted it. New flooring throughout. The furniture he had always meant to buy, instead of the furniture that had been a compromise. It was the house, finally, that the house had always been trying to become. There was a woman named Renata who had written a review of his Buckhead location 8 months ago. Fair. Precise. The kind of prose that told you the writer actually tasted what she described, and who had appeared at the Ponce Highland soft opening with a small notebook and very good questions. She had opinions about food that were genuinely her own. He recognized that immediately. She came to his kitchen on Sunday evenings and they cooked alongside each other and did not talk very much. But what they said was always worth saying, and he found that arrangement deeply sustaining. Vanessa had moved back into Gloria's house in Lithonia after the evening of the party. Gloria's social standing in the circles that had filled that living room had shifted considerably. Several of those 30 guests had not been present for the final hour by choice, and word in those circles traveled the way it always did, efficiently and without mercy. The divorce had been filed, processed, and finalized with the efficiency of something that had no assets left to contest. Vanessa had retained nothing from the house. There was nothing to retain. He heard she had taken a role in marketing for a mid-tier brand in Alpharetta, a step sideways from where she had been. He registered it. He set it down. Bitterness was a kitchen he had no interest in working. He pressed both palms against the past now and watched the Saturday room move and hum. He thought of Loretta May, who had run her supper club for 22 years in a house that everybody in Macon knew was hers, that nobody ever confused for available, that she had built from the belief that making people feel thought about was the highest form of work. He had built that. Table by table, location by location, year by patient year. He was still building it. He was whole. He was free. He was exactly the man his grandmother had raised him to be. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.